Welcome back, Fantasy Endgame community. I'm Pierre, here to help you with some more waiver wire pickups for hitters heading in now to week 10 of the 2022 season. Let's start with a guy who has been dropped in a lot of leagues because, I mean, let's just face it, he was doing terrible. He was actively hurting your team throughout the first 2 months of the season. And typically I like to only pick players that are, mostly available, like half of the leagues or more. 50% is kind of my threshold. But at this point, he was dropped in so many leagues, there's a good chance he might be available in yours. I'm talking about Joey Votto of the Cincinnati Reds. Joey Votto has been there every year for Cincinnati. He's been Vottomatic. Not so much this year, but you see what happened last year. Had that cold first half, people thought he was done, and then the second half, an epic tear, and he turned out to be a league winner in a lot of leagues. I'm not saying that's what's happening this year. Well, look, he was so bad, and you see the articles pop up. Is he done? Is it time? And of course, he fired back on social media. He's pretty active there, and he said, just wait, it's a long season. Well, guess what? So far, 6-game hitting streak ever since coming back from the COVID IL list, and he is heating up, hitting .292 over the past 2 weeks. Not on anything kind of like he did last year, not on that kind of a tear, but he is heating up. We know what he's capable of. His plate discipline is still there, but the good news is he still's got that aggressive approach from last year, and that's what happened is he went on that power binge because he started swinging more. A guy who's always had elite walk rates, but last year he started swinging at the first pitch more. He started chasing a little bit more, but this is a good thing because he has such good eye. He was making hard contact. So that is still in place. Everything looks like it's pointing to the fact he will still be viable for fantasy teams, and this is the time to scoop him up if he was dropped in your league. All right, another first baseman here. Veteran, not to the same extent of Joey Votto, somebody who is past prime age, but only has 1 year in the majors full season. I'm talking about Frank Schwindel of the Chicago Cubs. Same division, different situation. This is a guy who came out of nowhere last year in the second half after the Cubs finally committed to their rebuild. Rizzo was gone. Schwindel came in and had a really good post-All-Star break. Had some home runs. He was able to score some runs. That whole Cubs offense, which really nothing was expected from people from out of nowhere like Schwindel, were able to be productive. Rafael Ortega, guys like that. Well, it looked like all of them basically fell back to earth this year. None of them were doing anything like what we saw. It looked like it was all just a huge outlier. But now Schwindel is saying not so fast. He was dropped in a ton of leagues, but he's finally picking up just to kind of screw up the people who did drop him. He's, last couple of weeks, 4 home runs, 14 RBIs. Only 2 players have more RBIs than Schwindel over that period of time. Okay, so he's somebody who now is looking like what we were hoping for when we drafted him during the preseason. Hitting .291 also during that span. Look, the Cubs are not going to be the most electric offense in the league ever, especially this year. But they are, showing that at least they do have some life. And Schwindel, maybe he wasn't a flash in the pan. So again, you need some help at the corner infield. You need some power. We all need power, especially trying to fill the void now that Pete Alonso looks like he's hurt. Schwindel might be the time to pick him up. All right, now what about some speed? Everybody needs stolen bases. Here's a guy that we know has done it in the past, but just hasn't had that consistent playing time. Had not done it this year. Berti of the Miami Marlins. Well, he's a guy who's really just a utility player. Finally looked like the Marlins had enough players that they didn't need him to be a staple in their lineup, and he could just fill in as needed, play maybe every other day. Marlins being Marlins. Struggling on offense, also some injuries conspiring to the fact that Berti has now become an everyday player, at least as of late. Not sure that's going to hold up for the long term, but also Marlins getting back to doing, well, what they've done the last couple years in the Don Mattingly era, and that is run at will. Berti is a guy who can fill in at second base, shortstop, third base, and he has 6 stolen bases so far just in the last couple of weeks. Just since June 1st, he has 4 steals. All right, so no, he's not going to get you much power, if any. Batting average, it's playable, but nothing great. It's the steals, right? Just the steals and the fact that you can kind of slot him anywhere. He makes a nice utility player for your fantasy team. So you're hungry for some stolen bases. Berti, now is the time to stream him. All right, enough veterans. Let's get to the exciting young players. Let's go with another guy who's more of a speed first player, but really has potential to help in all categories. And I say potential because it hasn't quite shown up yet. So Michael Harris of the Atlanta Braves, only 21 years old, debuting And I kind of held off last week from mentioning him because I wasn't sure if this is going to be one of those quick up and down visits, a cup of coffee. You know, he struggles in his first couple of games, gets sent back down. But sure enough, he's stuck. He's been playing pretty much every day in the outfield. Eddie Rosario now moved to the 60-day IL. He's not coming back anytime soon. Braves have had their own share of injuries. Harris, an exciting young player, and he's getting a shot to play every day. Unfortunately, he's hitting at the very bottom of the lineup. That doesn't help, but still, he has so much potential. It's definitely worth monitoring for fantasy leagues. Now, he's not a must-add. He's not exactly on fire right now. For a while, he was almost up to 300. Now he's down to 265 as of this moment. No home runs, and sadly, no stolen bases. But again, we know the upside with him. This is the type of player worth taking a chance and bidding some fab on. Look, some people already put down a big chunk of their fab or use a high waiver claim to get him. They might be disappointed. Maybe you'll see his rostership start to go down a little bit the next couple of days if he doesn't produce anything exciting in terms of fantasy numbers. But this is a type of player worth holding on to. So Michael Harris, he's still available in about 2/3 of fantasy leagues. So if he's out there floating out there and you have the space, I would go ahead and grab him. All right, now another exciting young player that was actually drafted in a lot of leagues and then promptly dropped because, talk about struggling, Bryson Stott of the Philadelphia Phillies. So he's one, we kind of heard the rumors through spring training. Maybe he was going to have a chance to actually win the shortstop job coming out of spring training. And sure enough, on the opening day roster, a chance to start right away, and did nothing. I mean, really struggling, not showing any power, hitting well below 200, the Gallo line, as I call it. So Bryson Stott looked like, after getting sent down, was going to be, back in the minors full time this season. Well, now with John Segura hurt for a long time, going to be out several weeks, they need Stott, and he has responded. He had a walk-off home run just the other day, 2 home runs in a 3-game span. So it looks like he's coming alive. A lot of times these young players, believe it or not, it actually takes a little time for them to adjust to the pros, get their confidence up, and now that they need him with the Phillies, this is a chance to see what he can do. Maybe he's going to respond. So far, it looks like it. But again, we see what he has, that 5-category upside, and this is a player that is worth taking a shot on. Only 4% rostered across fantasy leagues right now. I picked him up in one of my leagues, going to see if he can produce over the long haul. And then this week's prospect to watch, perhaps take a chance on and stash, especially if you're in a keeper league, it is Travis Swaggerty, the former first-round pick from a few years ago. And this is a guy who has played well in the minors so far this year, had a lot of injuries. We weren't sure when he would really finally come up. Well, the time is now. He already made his debut, went 0 for 3, but look, it's a long season. The Pirates, they got nothing to play for except the future, and the future is now. So I did mention Cal Mitchell a couple weeks ago. He's only been a part-time player. He's a lefty. He's only playing against righties. So you can probably drop him if you did pick him up and then add Swaggerty. Again, this is pure speculation. We don't know how he'll perform at the pro level, but this is a guy who does actually have enough upside to be worth rostering in Roto League. So take a look at Swaggerty and see how he performs the next couple of days. He is still out there available in nearly every league, so definitely worth a speculative flyer. All right, those are my hitter waiver wire recommendations. Check out the picture version for this also here every week, as always, to help you win your fantasy leagues.